obviously leading up to this, and just to go through the process of the riders and how you monitor the riders who are potentially in contention. You've put a list together of 8 in the squad. Some riders, of course, have been involved in the Great Britain setup. For example, the meeting in Finland that you had at the weekend in the European Pairs Championships. But there have been other, maybe slightly below the radar GB events that go on through the course of the year. How important are they when it comes to a selection, and how do you go about scouting the different riders and in for what you're looking for? Obviously, this Polish form is important, and people will look at the team and the squad so far and look at riders who are not in there, who are riding well in Britain, but you're I guess, keeping the focus on the European form just as much.
Yeah, I knew we'd touch on that. You're right. You do look at, you have, I mean, first of all, when it comes to picking the team for the World Cup, as soon as the venue's announced, last year, you're thinking already about who would go well there, and between then and now, you're always keeping an eye on certain people and seeing what their form's like. And I think when it comes to picking a team for a World Championship event, you look at, the first thing you've got to look at is where it's held. What track is it on? Who has Polish experience? Who has who's riding there regularly? For me, that counts a lot. I think if this event was in the UK, then maybe the squad looks different, but it's not. It's so we're looking at riders that have experience out there, because as Kelvin will tell you, and back me up, I'm sure he better do, the Polish league, or no, sorry, Polish Speedway is very different. I say very different. You're all turning left, just it's the same bikes and everything like that, but it is a different ball game completely. And you can be very quick at Wolverhampton on a Monday, but when you turn up to Wroclaw on a Sunday, if you've not got the right gear and you've not got the right riding style as well, that's another thing. Then you'll be slow and you'll be eaten alive. So that does come into it.
I do. It's almost like a different sport in Poland these days. Riding in the UK, we're proud of the fact that we have a variety of tracks, small, big, different surfaces. Poland now is generally, their tracks are fairly slick. They're fast. You need a certain type of bike. You need to be, able to carry speed. And riders that are riding there on a regular basis have to be favourites for the World Cup. And I don't think you don't really have to be Einstein. The top 3 probably pick themselves. And I'm sure you and Simon have been looking closely at other riders that are riding regularly in Poland, because, as you rightly say, equipment and different setups and being familiar in that environment is going to be hugely important come next week.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And another thing, that's just a little thing that gets overlooked as well, is that if you've got a rider that rides primarily in the UK, so in the UK you're using a certain type of tyre, and you're only using one of them per meeting. Then you go out like, Polish league, it's the same rules as a Grand Prix. Use as many tyres as you want. You can use there's a certain type of rim that everyone's using now that a lot of our UK guys don't have. It seems to be that you need these tubeless tyres, and you need, and they're only subtle changes, but they are changes, that you can't get away from it. So that experience will count, I think. Another thing that Simon and I look for is, when it comes to picking our squad, our main squad to go from, we think about who's made themselves available for Great Britain events, who's wanted to wear the Great Britain race jacket when we've asked them to in events that are slightly less well publicised. In a European event, I know if I need someone to go and ride in Hungary, and they've got a meeting the night, everyone's got a meeting the night before, I know that Bomber's going to say yes. He will. It's just he is. I cannot speak highly enough of that bloke when he represents us. When I say us, Great Britain, he is a credit to himself and a credit to everyone around him. And he's sort of a role model for some of our younger riders in the way he goes about things. I don't like to single out one person, but he springs to mind when if I think, right, we've got this event, it's in a funny track, it's an awkward place to get to. Bomber causes us no problems at all. He's there, he's proud, it's no problem. And that goes a long way for me. It really does.
Yeah, fair play. And he's been rock solid, and his enthusiasm still remains. I don't think you'll pick him though.
Well, when's this being aired?
Yeah, sure. I think personally, for me, it's a fairly straightforward pick, and obviously you might want to agree with this, you might not. But obviously the first three, the Grand Prix boys, obviously will go in. Two of them, as you rightly say, ride for Wroclaw. Robert Lambert rides the place really well. His performance with Dan Bewley and Ty Woffington, back several years ago, was it 2017, 2018, when he came second. And both Bewley and Lambert have come of age since then. I would think that Adam Ellis must have every chance, and I would think it'll be Brennan for me, and possibly Stevie Worrell. Probably Stevie Worrell. I think that might give you a nice balance. Yeah,
you hit the nail on the head. I think Adam Ellis is someone that is riding well in Poland every week. He's using the same engine tuner as our top three boys are, which is Ashley Holloway, and he's there with us for the week. So that's another little bonus for him. But yeah, he's got that international experience. That Adam is he's what I would call an international rider. He rides at least once a week on the continent. He holds a team. He's held a team spot down in Poland for a few years now. So he deserves to be in there. I know he's worked with Simon a lot this year at Sheffield, and Simon will be the first to admit that his form for Sheffield has not been great. But his form in Poland has been good. Tom Brennan is someone that over the last 3 or 4 years that I've done this job, he's shown significant improvement. He's also shown a brilliant attitude. Like his attitude for taking on any meeting he can get has been brilliant. He's always proud to wear the race jacket, and I've really seen him improve this year. I watched the match from Bellevue on on Monday, and he had a great race with Emil in Heat 14, and that shows how far he's come. I think 4 years ago, you'd have said to me, if you'd asked me what kind of rider Tom Brennan is, he'd grown up at Eastbourne, and I would have said he very much fit that Eastbourne almost like kind of mold of rider. He's a very good small track technical rider, but I think he took the chance on going to Bellevue to further his career. And it took him 6 months, or it took him half a season to get used to it. And he's improved. And he's got a Polish team spot. He's out there every week practicing. I know he's on the verge of being in the team sometimes. He's going through that tough period, Kelvin, where you are on the fringes of the team and you go out there for maybe one ride, but they drop you in at Heat 14 and expect you to perform, and then moan when you don't. So that's tough for him at the moment, but he's shown a lot of progress over the last 3-4 years, and being around events like this will help him grow.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are spoilers in the other two teams, like Vasav Milik that's been mentioned. He rode for Wroclaw a few years ago, so he knows the place well. We've seen Kai Huckenbeck coming in wildcards for Grand Prix and can actually go very well indeed. Marcin Smolinski is fit again, and can't really underestimate them. So I think complacency and guarding against it is probably going to be one of the major challenges for Great Britain in the first semi-final. Obviously, they're the favourites for me. You look at that lineup; they are the favourites with the lineup that we will have. The 3 Grand Prix riders alone that makes us the favourites. I think Sweden, unfortunately, they need some fresh blood, in truth, coming through, which they don't seem to have a lot of at the moment. Freddie obviously is going to be strong, but I think Antonio Lindback is not the rider he was. Oliver Berntsson can go well, but he's hit and miss. And then after that, I'm not really quite sure who they're going to pick. But yeah, I think if you can have a fairly stress-free week, that won't be a bad thing. Well, I'm trying to think, I have seen teams win going through the race-off. You know, sometimes they will actually say if they win the World Cup, that actually it did them a favour because it kept them it kept them on track and it kept them focused, and it can work. But as I think when we go on to talk about Denmark and Australia, there's no doubt both of those teams are quite useful, no doubt about it. What about Australia, Ollie? You know, to me, I sense that Australia have got, you know, obviously a brilliant win last year in the Speedway of Nations, Holder and Frick doing a remarkable job, and actually surprised us a bit, to be honest. I don't think that a lot of people were fancying them to win, but they did. I think Jack Holder came of age that week. You know, his performance in the final was just exemplary. I think we've seen a lot more of that again this year. He's kicked on from that. But when you look at their lineup, and obviously with Doyle coming out of retirement and declaring himself available, he leads. Frick, Holder. You've got Brady Kurtz and Jaimin Lidzi. I'd be surprised if it's different from that. That's a pretty solid lineup.
Yeah, it is. It's a strong team. You know, they've got a really solid lineup. You don't see any weaknesses in that. And I think you're right about Jack Holder. I think last year that World Cup for him or Speedway Nation, was like a catalyst almost for him to kick on and push on from it. I think something clicked in him then, and he realised what he could do at that level, and probably since then that's what he's done. So he's in a good place right now. So yeah, they're a strong side. I think Doyley's probably not going as well as he'd want to. I'm sure he'll be doing lots about that behind the scenes. So yeah, I think it's I think they're a strong team. I think they're as strong as anyone, to be honest. They've got no weak links. They've got any one of those riders can go out and win races. So yeah, they'll be tough.
Yeah, I quite fancy them. What about the home team? Home team, I think they've got issues. The home team, I think that Speedway World Cup, they've been immensely successful. I think they're very proud. I think they almost put as much store in winning the World Cup as they do an individual World Championship, having been present at quite a few of their victories prior to the Speedway of Nations. They really do get behind the team. But Rafa Dubrocki, for me, has got some huge decisions to make, because some of his bigger names, in particular Janowski, I can't see him leaving Janowski out, but his form in the Grand Prix is appalling. It's appalling. It's just not very good. And that performance in Melilla, his home track, don't know where that comes from. So I think it'll be very interesting to see which way he goes with his team. I really do.
Yeah, I choose. I really wouldn't. I mean, Simon and I are lucky in a way that our top three almost pick themselves. Dubrocki's not got that. He's almost got too many options. Like you would sort of assume that because you're a Grand Prix rider, then you are in the team. But actually, there are Polish riders on better form than Magic. But it's his home track, so I think Rafa will feel under pressure to put him in there. Dudek's come good recently. In the last couple of weeks, he's done very well. So you expect him to be in, but after that, it's I think that's why there's so much pressure on them. Not only their class is the top Speedway nation at the moment, not officially. Australia are. I think Poland are about 6th or 7th, but we know that's a load of rubbish. But I think they've got so many options that if they don't win, I think you probably see Rafa lose his job, because he's not done well for them in the last couple of years. So a lot of pressure on him, massive pressure on the riders as normal, extra pressure because it's in Poland. So yeah, I think I wouldn't want to be in their shoes if I'm honest.
Who can you see them picking? Let's push it a bit. If you were in Dubrocki's shoes, what would you do? Would you play with the Grand Prix stars and then sort of look at, because Kolodje's had a good season, Kubera has been injured, Even that Matthias Shinyak, like he's going good.
Cerniak. Yeah, I think if I was him, I think Dudek and Smarzik are in. I'd have Kolodzi in. Possibly have Magic at reserve, and then if Cabrera's fit, I'm not sure if he's. I saw Cabrera ride earlier this year at a European team final in Strasbourg, and he was fantastic. He looked so good. He looked every bit a Grand Prix rider. And if Cabrera's fit, I'd probably have him in over Magic. Have Magic at reserve. It's his home track. He's a handy person to have about if you need him. But his form's not that good at the moment at the top level.
No, not an easy one for De Brockie, but nonetheless, it gives us it's a good talking point. And as you're right, the massive amount of pressure, the place will be heaving on Saturday night on the 29th. There's no doubt about that. I'm sure they'll turn out, because when we had the Speedway of Nations there, it was almost boycotted. I mean, it was like a ghost town when we raced there, which was very unusual indeed. It's a great venue. I think the Poles will be very keen, and that added pressure, I think we might see an upset. I really do. I think the world final, I think if it goes to plan where you've got the Poles, Britain, obviously Australia and Denmark, I think will be the top four. I think that's a great lineup. I think any of those teams can win it.
Yeah, I'd agree. If I was outside of the sport and outside of the management, then it would, I don't know. It's a tough call. I believe in our boys. I'll know a lot more about where we stand after Tuesday. But yeah, it's going to be really. I think if you were to introduce someone to Speedway and say, watch this for your first meeting, I think next Saturday is going to be a really good one.
There was a question I wanted to ask regarding the Great Britain team. Obviously, the first three picked themselves. You've named Ty as your captain. Ty's form at Grand Prix this year hasn't been as good as it might be. Does that concern you, Ollie? Because obviously, the poor Prague, he's not going as well as he has been in Grand Prix, certainly the last two seasons. And or do you feel that maybe potentially riding in the World Cup, that will inspire him to ride to his best again?
Historically, for us, regardless of Ty's form at that time, whenever he competes for us in a Great Britain event, he's fantastic. He's brilliant. He raises his game. He was brilliant at Bellevue before he got injured. I think at Voyens he had a 0 and then 5 wins in the semi. And I think Ty's performance in Voyens was the most dominant of any individual rider from any team in that Speedway Nations. Prior to him getting an off-track injury, I think Ty loves racing for Great Britain. I think he's really motivated to ride for us, and I think he thrives on being a leader. I think Ty's one of those people where the more pressure you give him, I think the better he is, and he loves being number one and loves being captain, because I just think that builds him up a little bit and he performs better. And I think it suits him. He wants to lead the team. I think, at the moment, Dan and Robert their form in the Grand Prix is better than Ty's. But I don't have any doubts over him when it comes to these team events. The other thing is, in Ty's head, and I know this from speaking to him, he feels like he's not won a medal yet, because when we won in Bellevue, Ty was injured. When we got a silver last year, Ty was injured. Now he took part in the sort of qualifying process, but he is desperate to win a gold medal for the team, absolutely desperate. And he almost doesn't even class the gold we got in Bellevue as his, because he feels like he didn't do it. So I know how motivated he is for this. So, I don't have my doubts about Ty.